Ladies and gentlemen, the Faculty of Social Sciences is pleased to share with this afternoon in our research seminar, How to be Successful at Research in Spite of. I wanted to just bring greetings to our Dean, Professor David Tennant, all our panelists, as well as all the participants who have joined us. You are in for a feast today. We have a 5-course meal prepared for you, and that course will begin very shortly. I'll tell you more about our panelists and how exciting they are. But before that, I introduce to you our Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor David Tennant, to bring you welcome and opening remarks. Prof. Tennant.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Everybody hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Welcome to the Faculty of Social Sciences panel discussion on how to be successful at research in spite of. Colleagues, the new COVID realities and associated disruptions have had a significant impact on our faculty's research enterprise. Many of us as researchers have faced unexpected difficulties during this period, including things like lack of access to resources, issues related to personal health management, family responsibilities, competing demands, and just juggling several roles. We spend a time adapting to a new normal, and our research productivity as individuals and as a faculty has been adversely affected. Although the mobilization of technology has brought about increased flexibility during the pandemic, our traditional work-life boundary, colleagues, has completely disintegrated. With campus closures and pivots to remote teaching and learning, new workloads have been established and have been placed on all of us as academics, along with the new difficulties associated with our ability to conduct research. And unfortunately, these challenges have not lessened the pressure to conduct research and to publish. Colleagues, I also understand and appreciate that these challenges are not evenly distributed. So for example, parents who are academics are struggling. The pandemic has created burdens with juggling childcare, research, and teaching, both teaching at school and teaching our children at home. Others are forced to juggle many roles and the emotional factors that coincide with each unique competing demands. So clearly there is no simple or single way of ensuring that we'll be successful at research. The types of research and the context within which we conduct research vary widely, so that the ideal strategies will differ from situation to situation and from person to person. So today's forum, colleagues, is designed to allow you to interact with a few of your colleagues within the Faculty of Social Sciences who have managed to remain successful in both research and in teaching, despite family responsibilities, despite competing demands and resource constraints, and despite juggling several roles. It's hoped that as a faculty, we can use this forum to speak openly and honestly about the strategies that we can employ to help us to be productive during this period and beyond this period. And so I want to close my very, very brief opening remarks this afternoon by thanking Dr. Shevers and his team for organizing the forum, by thanking the moderator and all the panelists for leading this very timely discussion. I want to end quickly because I have my notepad and my pen ready to take notes. I am ready to learn. Blessings, colleagues. I hope you have a great time this afternoon. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Prof. Tennant. I too have my notepad out. I have my pen ready so that I can learn at the feet of some very exciting researchers who have managed to achieve that balance. I'm Andrew Spencer, and I am a senior lecturer in the Mona School of Business and Management, also with responsibilities for heading the undergraduate programs in the MSBM. I remember some 13 years ago, starting my own academic journey at the UWI. And I was introduced to an expression very quickly. It was publish or perish. And you spend some time trying to figure out what that means. But the important thing is that we have with us today individuals who have managed to balance that side of their academic output. And they've demonstrated a great deal of what I consider to be academic dexterity. And a lot of that will be required. Even more so now when you look at the topic, in spite of. That in spite of has become particularly intensified now with the pandemic. And so it is a very timely seminar, and I want to thank the organizers, Dr. Shevers and his team. And I just want to introduce them very quickly. These are individuals, colleagues, who have managed to achieve a great deal of quantity in their output, quality of their output in research, and of course, manage to have some semblance of a quality of life even outside of the academy. And we know from those of us who've lived it that there are a great deal of tensions between them all. So today we're going to, as I said before, benefit from a feast because we have some individuals who are prolific and productive researchers. But I know you think they're going to be just talking about all of what they've done. And no, they're actually people. They're not just machines that produce research. And so they're all family people with needs, feelings, daily decisions to make about what to prioritize. And each of them has, I should share with you, significant administrative and leadership responsibilities along with their need to publish. Today, they're here to talk to us about the family responsibilities, the competing demands, the resource constraints, and of course, juggling several responsibilities. The fantastic presenters are all varied in their fields, and that also excites me because we have representation from the Department of Government, from the Department of Economics, from the Mona School of Business and Management, and from Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work. So our first presenter today, I will introduce them all up front and then we will go into what each of their presentations are. So Dr. Nadine McLeod. Nadine McLeod is the head of and senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Her main research interests are econometric theory, economic development, and the political economy and applied econometrics. Her theoretical focus recently derives you see, I was about to say asymptomatic because COVID is all in my mind, but it is asymptotic properties for a semi-parametric system of simultaneous equation models with instrumental variables and degrees of freedom for differing non-parametric regression models. A mouthful, and she's a mother. Some of her applied works have focused on using semi-parametric tools to delve into cross-country patterns of institution-induced heterogeneity in the effect of foreign direct investment flows on different aspects of economic development. She's currently exploring the inflation targeting effect of macroeconomic outcomes and the sources of variation in students' academic performance in Jamaica. She has attained publications in economics, statistics, and mathematics, refereed international journals. She has been a Fulbright visiting research scholar at Cornell University and has held short research stints at Humboldt University in Germany, Purdue University, University of Miami, and Xiamen University in China. She's a member of the editorial board of the Journal of International Trade and Economic Development. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my key tasks today is to manage the time and to keep us honest with time. So I am going to move to our next presenter. But Dr. McLeod will be presenting to us on the challenges of being a mother and an academic researcher while doing all of those fantastic things I shared with you earlier. Our second presenter is Dr. Suzette A. Horton. Suzette Horton is senior lecturer and head of the Department of Government, the University of the West Indies, Mona. She was awarded a PhD in International Relations and Security Studies from the Department of War Studies, King's College, London. She holds MSc in Government and BSc in International Relations from the Department of Government, UWI Mona. She's also a trained teacher and a former United Kingdom Commonwealth scholar. Her research interests span learning styles, strategies, and online learning, theories and issues in international relations and security studies, security threats and the nation state. She has published extensively on border security and security threats affecting citizens and nation states. Her topic today will be publishing despite competing demands. Our third presenter is Dr. Delroy Shevers. Delroy Shevers is a senior lecturer of operations management and information systems at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He is the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and Research in the Faculty of Social Sciences. He holds a PhD in Information Systems from the University of the West Indies. His research interests are software process improvement, information systems quality and success, and project management and operations sustainability. And he'll present to us today on institutional resources at the UWI to support research. Our final presenter will be Dr. Carol James Bateman. Carol James Bateman is a clinical psychologist and eating disorder specialist in Jamaica. She's also a senior lecturer and associate dean for undergraduate studies and student experience in the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies, Mona. She is deeply committed to improving mental health in the Caribbean. Through her research and work with her patients, she has recognized that culture plays a significant role in the way patients seek and receive treatment. Her research is focused mainly on eating disorders, other forms of psychopathology, and the lived experiences of psychiatric patients. In the international community, Dr. James Bateman is known to actively share information on the Caribbean culture and its impact on the presentation and treatment of eating disorders. Her topic today, very exciting, is something going to give, juggling the roles of scientist, practitioner, a lecturer. And I think it must have been by design why Dr. Bateman has been left for last, because some of us may very well need to get some guidance on how to manage our mental space during these times. So, colleagues, without further ado, I'd like to welcome to make her presentation. The colleagues have 10 minutes to make their presentations today. And I'd like to invite our first presenter, Dr. Nadine McLeod, who will present to us on the topic, the challenges of being a mother and an academic researcher. Over to you, Dr. McLeod.
Thank you so much, Dr. Spencer. Good afternoon, everyone, Dean and my fellow panelists and audience members. Pleasant good afternoon. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a few slides, not many. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Control L. Okay, great. This topic is a personal one. I think this is going to be my most personal presentation ever, but I'm going to be honest and you know, and let you know how I feel, how I'm coping, and tell you some of my one of my latest personal experiences, and also end with a few tips, right? Just a few slides to help me along the way. Okay, so the idea, the challenges between being that we face as a mother and as an academic researcher has been widely studied in the academic literature. Sometimes you see this issue come under the term productivity puzzle or gender gap in research productivity. And the idea is that, you know, child rearing women have less resources, you know, like time, energy, and even money to commit to boosting their research productivity. Now, the papers on this in the academic literature, they're varied and the results are quite mixed, right? So I'm just to give you a flavor of what these papers are, I'm just going to show you a few excerpts, and these are like from their abstracts. So this paper is important to me because in 2010, my first child was born, my daughter was born, and I remember seeing this abstract coming across my screen and reading it and think, oh my God, you know, I'm so dead, because in 2010, 2 years after completing the PhD, I had my first child, and I was already struggling trying to balance, you know, my different responsibilities and so on. So seeing this, I mean, this really got me worried. So this is one of the papers basically saying, you know, there's a differential cost of childbearing, and it's far greater for high school women. And in fact, it's you know, it suggests that, you know, you should delay or avoid childbearing altogether, right? So that's one of the papers. Another one is by Stack. This one, you know, covered it's quite a large sample, 11,231 PhD graduates, and the last line, children are not a strong predictor of productivity, but the influence they do have follow a gendered pattern, right? Now, if we take a look at Ginther and Kahn, and they were published in Journal of Economic Perspectives, this was done on US and Canada, then they found that Although gender differences in productivity and the effect of children on promotion partly explain women's lesser chances of receiving tenure in economics, a significant portion of the gender promotion gap remains unexplained by observable characters. So children do matter, they say, but there's still a lot that's unexplained by observed variables. And of course, Sachs et al. Basically, said results show that the factors affecting faculty research productivity are nearly identical for men and women, and family-related variables such as dependent children exhibit little or no effect on research productivity. So as you can see, the results are in the academic literature are quite heterogeneous. But what does the anecdotal evidence say? Quite frankly, I am yet to meet someone. I'm yet to meet a counterpart who has said that if I did not have kids, my research productivity would have been lower, right? And yes, my sample may be biased, but my counterparts are people who I believe I'm comparable to on a wide range of dimensions, right? So it is a real struggle. My own experiences, well, I have so many, I think I could write books. So many disruptions that have basically taken me off the research path for, and then I had to try to get back on, and getting back on is always costly. Now, I want to share with you my most recent experience. So, I started out last semester in September thinking, okay, COVID was disruptive. This is unprecedented. I am going to, try anyways to get some research done. So I revised my goals downward and say, I just need to do some journal submissions, because at the time I had a couple papers that were ripe for journal submissions. They just needed, a couple more hours, not necessarily an entire semester, but a couple more hours to refine them and so on. And I thought, okay, this is it. I've lowered my ambitions. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get some work done while having, 2 kids at home doing online learning, teaching at the same time, and everything else. I'm gonna get this done. At the end of one day at the end of September, my daughter called me at work and she said she wanted to talk to me if I was coming home soon. And I said, yeah, sure. Is it going to be a girl talk? And she said, yes, mommy. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm kind of, excited now. It's a girl talk. So I came home and I sat down and I said, what you wanted to talk about? And this is bringing back really bad memories. And she said, mommy, I've lost my enthusiasm for school. And I looked at her face and all I could see was the proverbial D, she was in a serious state of depression. And I swear my heart just dropped in my chest. I mean, right now, it doesn't even feel like it's in the right place. And I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry because at one point in time we were talking, she started crying. So I know if I started crying, then, she would probably just fall apart and she would never recover. So many negative emotions came over me. I felt like I wanted to faint. My legs felt weak. I couldn't believe that, she was going through this and I didn't see it. I didn't see it. How did this happen? I didn't sleep for a week. After that, I had to pop some sleeping pills just to fall asleep after 1 week because I was so stressed out. But in the process of me just trying to help her get back on her feet and so on, I was blaming myself. And, because I kept saying to myself, how did I not see this? How did I not see this? I talk to her every day. I see her every day, and there were signs, to be honest with you, there were little signs. Hindsight is 2020, right? So there were, I'm looking back and I'm thinking there were signs. Now, why didn't I think that this was a problem for her? Why didn't I think that this, the social distance wasn't going to be a problem for her? In any case, by the middle of October, I woke up one morning and I was in the bed and I couldn't move. I couldn't move my leg. I knew it was because, the stress, had basically, exceeded the threshold, my threshold for stress, right? And I have a very high threshold for stress. And so that was what was happening to me. But at the same time, to be honest, I was so grateful. I was so grateful that I was in bed, even though I felt, I was experiencing temporary paralysis. I was so happy that I was in bed, because the last time I, lost control of things, and the source was different then, but the last time I lost control of things and I tried to save myself, I couldn't. I didn't have enough time, and I fainted at home and I broke my neck. So I was so happy that even though, I couldn't move my legs, I was so happy I was in bed. I was happy I wasn't driving and so on. But at the same time, I told myself, Nadine, you have to snap out of this, right? I mean, you're doing things to make it better for her. She's improving. You have to snap out of this. You have to stop blaming, yourself. You have to stop, looking back and seeing, you have to snap out of it. And I did just that. I after a couple of days, I had to cancel classes, of course, but after a couple of days, I felt, I felt better. But, of course, during that entire last semester, research could not have been a priority for me. Just could not have been a priority for me. And at the end, I was okay. I was okay with not doing those journal submissions that I wanted to do, because what was important to me, what was the most important thing, is to ensure that my daughter was in the best of health, to make sure that this time around I see her and I see what is happening, and I ensure that I help her to get through all of this. So being a mom and being an academic researcher is quite difficult. I mean, I don't think, I have to be honest, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. But there are a few things that I've learned along the way, and some I've been told by others, and I want to leave them with you. I guess I'm probably going to be running out of time soon. But I want to leave with you some coping mechanisms that I have applied, and some of them I wish I had applied earlier on in my life. It would have been so much easier, right? But I'm I think I'm there right now. So in 2011, 1 year after having my daughter, the first one is lower your discount rate. What do I mean by that? In 2011, and where did this idea come from? In 2011, sorry, I got to a point where I felt like I couldn't be a mother and a researcher. And so I had to choose. And of course, I was going to choose to be a mother, and I wanted to quit my job. And so I went to the dean then, Dean Figueroa, and I told him, what was happening. And he set up a meeting for me to talk with Professor Yvette Jackson. And so when we're talking, I remember her saying to me, I was telling her everything that I was going through, and she could relate. She's a mom, she's a professor, everything. And she said, don't worry, Nadine, you're gonna achieve your goals. It's just gonna take you longer, and that's okay. And that resonated with me, but of course, knowing me, I'm always trying to still work out different permutations and combinations. How can I maximize things, or can I get the most of everything? So essentially what she was telling me, that you need to lower your discount rate on your goals and be comfortable with that. And you also, you also have to be comfortable with lowering it even further to, at times later on in life, you will be able to increase your discount rate on your goals, but you need to just lower them. And that is so important. One of the things I've learned is that, I have to get comfortable with moving the goalpost. So for example, if I didn't submit the papers this semester, it's okay. I'll try again next semester. And that's okay. I have to get comfortable with just doing this, not to get frustrated because, I didn't get to do what I want to do. And once you get frustrated, that's all negative energy. So there's absolutely no way you can concentrate as much as you want to concentrate. One of the things that I wish I'd done very early on, like after grad school, I did have co-authors after leaving grad school, but I wish I had diversified my co-author base a lot more, because it does help to keep you on this research train that's moving at a very high speed. And, you know, and it doesn't, this research train does not stop for anyone. And if you fall off, I'm telling you, the cost of you getting back on is higher than the cost of you actually staying on. So having a wide enough co-author base, you know, I believe, you know, has helped in staying on this research train and getting the work done. And it helps to motivate you too. And, you know, at times these are people that I can relate to. And so they help me, you know, along the way whenever I feel like I'm falling off. Now, point 4, you know, I think you have to be very careful about the extent to which you diversify your research portfolio, and be careful in the sense that think about your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And what is your role on each research project, right? So if you and also, so if you find yourself working on too many different topics that require a lot of initial investment, then that can actually slow you down a lot. So you want to, yes, you want to diversify your research portfolio, but you got to be careful the extent to which you diversify, because then you may be doing too much and you're not hitting the target. You're not completing the work. You're not submitting these people to the journals, you know, and so on. So you have to be careful about that. I also believe that you should, you know, participate in at least one conference per year. Let that be, you know, your target, no matter what, at least one, because it helps you, of course, as you know, to network. It helps you to get, you know, comments on your papers and so on, and will push you to put in that paper, submitting that paper for journal consideration. And lastly, you know, make friends with journal rejections. What do I mean by that? Journal rejections are quite unpleasant, right? I mean, no one wants to be rejected. We always hope that each time we submit a paper, you get, you know, at minimum we get a revise and resubmit. And to be rejected it's you know, sometimes you feel like you know, you're falling apart. But you have to get comfortable with that. Make friends with that, right? Because it helps you to go back into the paper, look at what you need to change, improve the quality of the paper. And it also helps you to be your own, as you know, one of my colleagues told me earlier on today, it helps you to be your own reviewer, right? You want to be your own reviewer, and you want to, you know, take these preemptive actions before you submit your paper to the journal, because you know journals are looking for a reason to reject your paper, not to accept your paper. With an acceptance rate of single digits for most economic journals, they're looking for a reason to reject it and not to accept it. So you have to try to become your own reviewer, take preemptive measures to ensure that, you know, you cover all your bases, you know, you really do have a good paper, and that would help. Guys, I think that's my 10 minutes. Andrew, did I exceed my time, or do I? That's it for me.
You exceeded, but it was so refreshing that we had to keep going with you.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. McLeod. It was really a breath of fresh air in terms of just sharing your experiences and the honesty surrounding that. And those takeaways at the end, I'm sure there will be many questions for you at the end. That's when we'll take the questions. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. McLeod. I also wanted to use this opportunity very quickly to welcome Dr. Pamela McLaughlin, who is the head of the Mona Office for Research Innovation, who has joined us. Thank you, Doc. At this point, we will go into our next presentation. It has started well, and I'm looking forward to this continuity in sharing. Dr. Suzette Horton will present to us now on publishing despite competing demands. Over to you, Dr. Horton.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer. Good afternoon, Dean, other colleagues, listeners on the platform. Let's see, okay. All right, so in the next 5 minutes or so, I'll be discussing publishing despite competing demands. Are you seeing my screen? You should, right, okay.
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
Right, so I'll quickly talk about the challenges facing academics and give some tips to overcome those challenges. And then I will conclude. And after that, I'll play a video, which I think is fitting, which sums up quite nicely what I've said. Sorry, I'm trying to change the slide. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter who you are, your station in life, we're all given 24 hours in a day. Now, time is the only factor, I think, that is constant for all of us. And publishing is the single most important burden, I think, that confronts academics. As Dr. Spencer mentioned in his opening remarks about the adage, publish or perish, none of us want to perish. Yet, we face a number of challenges as academics, and these challenges impact on our efficiencies and steal the time we need to invest in our research. Some of these challenges are life. Life happens. We have families, young or old, that we must take care of. We have other work-related responsibilities. And we also face personal challenges at times that undermine our ability to write in any meaningful sort of way. And of course, we face challenges, resource-related challenges, financial challenges. Sometimes we have no resource at all to invest in research. We also encounter publication bias, which shatter sometimes our publication confidence and encourages us to take the path of least resistance. Now, in terms of some of the tips, we must recognize, we cannot afford to forget this, that publishing is integral to our identities as academics. We have to manage our time wisely. We have to seek support, and this support might be financial support to conduct research, or it might be just joining with writing with a co-author, or it might just be drawing on the experiences of our more senior colleagues. And we have to focus. We have to focus on ourselves. We have to ensure that we have sort of a ritual, a morning or evening ritual that helps us. It might be exercise, it might be dancing, it might be cooking, it might be baking, whatever it is, we need to find it and we need to focus on that. We have to get in the habit of writing frequently, even when we feel that we are not in the mood to write, or when we feel that what we write isn't adequate. We have to keep writing. We need to approach the best journals and the publishing houses. Rejection, we must remember, is a very important part of the process. But when we get rejected, we need to recalibrate and unpack the comments, and we need to take time to do that, but we should never stop there. We should keep going, start again, and improve our papers for publication. Once we get a publication victory, we should not be too complacent with that victory, reliving that victory over and over. But instead, we need to press on and get more victories. We should never lose that hunger to feel the victory of publication success over and over again. We have to set our publication goals, manageable goals, and we need to be focused on our output, not on others. And we need to ensure that this focus continues despite what we define our goals as. And we also have to ensure that we learn from our failures. And in terms of conclusion, our academic journey is varied. My story won't be your story, won't be the other person's story. But despite the personal, financial, or other challenges, we have to find workable ways to preserve our identities as academics. We have to continue publishing, and we have to be innovative and creative to navigate the time challenge, because we all have only 24 hours in one day. Now I will share the video clip, and I think this is a clip from US Navy Admiral William McRaven, and I think it's quite appropriate. So I'll share it now.
Start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we call them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and 1 special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down to the Mud Flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive the freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction of the rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became two, and two became three, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted, and somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Horton. Wonderful food for thought. I just wanted to share with the audience that we will be taking the questions at the end. I know you're burning with those questions, but we will have them at the end of all presentations. So I'm pleased, colleagues, to welcome our next presenter, Dr. Delroy Shevers, who will be sharing with us on institutional resources at the UWI to support our research. Over to you, Dr. Shevers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Spencer. Welcome, Dean. Welcome, fellow panelists and all attendees. I'll be sharing my screen. So give me a minute. Okay, are you seeing the screen?
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you. Okay, the theme of this seminar is how to be successful at research in spite of. And in my case, I am looking at in spite of resource constraint. But I've flipped the topic, and instead of looking at resource constraint, I'm looking at institutional resources at UWI to support research. The ancient belief is that the earth is flat, and we all know that. And so Columbus and his crew on their voyage, at some point, they would fall off the earth. And that was the prevailing belief. But then, through the power of research and, more importantly, publication, we now know that the earth is oval or round or whatever we want to say. So scholars and scientists from Egypt and Greece conducted extensive research, and they discovered that the earth is oval. Now, when they discover that, they have a responsibility to share and publish their discovery with the world. So they now need to add to the body of knowledge. And now, instead of us saying the earth is flat, now we're saying that the earth is oval. Now, this kind of research is what we call a big T research, a high impact research, a big theory research. But my challenge to you all is let us strive to do both big T research and little t research. And so I want to look at some financial assistance at UWI for full-time lecturers. That's the first assistance I want to share with you. We all know about study and travel grant. We get 634,000 Jamaican dollars per year, and this can be accumulated over about a 3-year period. And we get this grant to attend conferences. It covers registration fee, airfare, meal, and transportation. So this is a reasonable grant. However, because of COVID, many conferences now are virtual. And so many of us now access this grant mainly for registration fee. Let's now look at financial assistance for graduate students and also for lecturers. The University of the West Indies has research and publication grant that we commonly call R&P grant. And the purpose of that grant is to attend conferences and also to purchase research material. The grant is capped at US 3,000, right? 3,000 US dollars per application for both MPhil and PhD students. MPhil students are normally allowed a maximum of 2 grants during the course of their period. PhD students are allowed a maximum of 3 grants during their course of their program. When you're making this application, the students must also submit their supervisor report. They must also submit ethics approval and prepare a budget, and all of those are part of the package for submission for R&P grant. But then many of us as lecturers don't know that we as lecturers can also access R&P grant. But for us as lecturers, it is capped at 100,000 Jamaican dollars, and this is to cover airfare. And so here what we find, we find students mainly in science and tech and medicine, mainly. Many of our students in our faculty do not. The majority of our students do not apply for R&P grant. And so I would like you to share this with many of your students, and also us as lecturers, we can get 100,000 for airfare through this grant. Let's look at some administrative and assistance being provided by UWI. We have sabbatical leave for 1 year with pay, and we generally are qualified for sabbatical leave after being here for 7 years. But it is important when you get the sabbatical leave to go overseas and also align yourself with universities overseas, right? Work with colleagues, collaborate with colleagues overseas, right? And then another is fellowship leave for 6 months to do research at an overseas university. And when we go on fellowship leave, we're financed by the overseas university. And then looking at some other assistance, we could apply for semester off, 1 semester off. And you get the 1 semester off with pay. But please do not teach or do consultancy during that period. You ask for the 1 semester off to do research during the period. Then we also have research assistant to assist us to do literature review, format our manuscript to the journal specification, etc. And then recently we're trying to form a FSS grant writing committee. That committee will provide guidance with respect to where are the grant opportunities, how to write a persuasive grant proposal. These are the kind of assistance that we're trying to offer to colleagues here within the faculty and also the university. If we look at Maury, and I know Dr. McLaughlin is in attendance, so we're looking at Maury now and the kind of assistance. Maury can assist us with dissemination of grant funding opportunities, also assist us to review funding opportunities guideline to ensure that institutional compliance, the compliance with funders rule and also URI regulation, they can do that review for us, right? Also, Maury can provide guidance on writing and submitting a competitive grant application. Maury assists us with the development of a budget to submit as part of our proposal, grant writing proposal. Maury also facilitates seminars and workshops. In April the 15th, just last month, we had a seminar on publication is power, and we had 4 presenters from 4 faculties at that seminar. At the moment, Maury is planning an online publication workshop either at the end of this month or maybe sometime next month. Also, Maury also have intellectual property protection training. These things are very, very important, right? These are powerful avenues and assistance. In continuing looking at Maury and the kind of contribution and assistance that we can get, they facilitate research, collaboration, and the mentorship. They provide legal guidance. They can do an initial review of research-related memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement, agreement for establishment of scholarship and research grant. All of these are available to us as researchers here through the services of Maury. Let's now look at the library and some of the assistance. Through the library, we can access electronic databases, Emerald, ProQuest, Web of Science. We get support by our library representative for our faculty, and the library has a representative for each faculty. But the library representative for our faculty is Miss Audrey Sadler. And we can talk to her and she can assist us with these things. Predatory journal advisory. So I would like to publish my paper in a particular journal. I'm not too sure if they're a predator or not. We can bounce it by Ms. Sadler and she can provide that kind of guidance. We can do it as well, but we could also ask Ms. Sadler for assistance. Another assistant that she can assist us with is information resource loan service to get a book or to get a particular journal. Interlibrary resource loan and document delivery. Portable device loan service with respect to like tablets and laptops. We could ask her to assist us with respect to journal impact factor check-in. Also, training on citation management tools. All of these are assistance and facilities that are available to us through the library and also, more importantly, in our faculty, through Ms. Sadler. And here I have her email address and it conforms to the regular UA convention, audrey.sadler02@uemona.edu.jm. In continuing looking at the library, we know as the researcher can access the Cabell's preparatory report. Formerly it was called the Cabell Blacklist. And now, importantly, we can do that check even off campus. Earlier, we had to do it here using a UA device with the IP address and that kind of thing. Now we can even do it off campus now at home. That's a good benefit. Eh? And lastly, work in the staff section of the main library, right? There's a quiet zone to do quality research work in the library. I've used this facility more than once. Go in that section of the library and do some quality work. These are there for us. Eh? Let's look at MITS. Through MITS, we have access to statistical tools like SPSS, NVIGO, QDA Minor, etc. We also have access to reference manager software like EndNote, Reference Manager, etc. I use EndNote a lot. We can have access to Google Forms to collect data. All of these resources are available to us. And as a researcher, we need to access these as much as possible. This slide is now looking at the life of an academic, and Nadine spoke to it, and Susie spoke to it. We're teaching, we're conducting experiments and doing analysis. We're writing reports, we're publishing paper, we're doing presentation, we review papers, and we serve on editorial board, right? We undertake administrative duties. Some of us are associate deans, some of us are head of departments, etc. We're applying for funding, grant funding, etc. We serve on local and international boards. We're a mentor, we're mentoring junior researchers, etc. We're writing recommendations for students to do further studies, for job, for exchange program, all of those things we're doing. But in the midst of all of these activities, it is imperative to balance our time. So if you look at the advantage of working on publication, on this graph, on my x-axis, we have time with time progressing. And Susan mentioned earlier that all of us have just 24 hours in the day. But as time progresses, on the x-axis, we have time progressing. On the y-axis, we have knowledge, and us gaining knowledge. And what this graph is saying, as time progresses, we're gaining knowledge. And now that we're gaining knowledge, we rapidly become the world leading expert in this particular domain or this particular field that we're interested in. And that now can open doors for promotion, to get consultancy because we're seen as an expert, and to also gain research awards, right? And so my charter to you all, ladies and gentlemen, is let us all do something positive tomorrow in this era of research, and also importantly, publication, because we can do the research, but we do not publish what we have found. So it's important for us to twin the research and the publication to add to the body of knowledge. Let us all define a research question and commit to follow through along the publication process, because we know the journey. We can get a lot of rejection, revise and submit, on and on and on. But just persevere. Have that stick-to-itiveness and that tenacity. Just continue. Let us challenge ourselves, set realistic, meaningful, and measurable research goals, and commit to get 2 publications by next year. That's my charter to you. I'd really like you to commit, stick to the program, and try and get 2 publications. That's your standard, 1.5 or 2 publications per year. Try and see if we can achieve that. And so I'd like you to be on cloud 9, just like Bolt. That's what I'd like us to be as researchers. Commit, set some objective and commit and stick to it. And that's my presentation. And later I will answer your questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shevers. Your message has been received. Tap into those resources. I must tell you, I had something else planned for tomorrow. You have indicated that tomorrow I should do something positive in this area called research and publication. No time like the present. Thank you. Just to say to our participants that at the end of the session, you may either ask your questions through the chat or you may simply raise your hands. Okay, so we're getting close to that point. But before we get to question and answer, we have a very exciting presentation coming up by Dr. Carol James Bateman, a brilliant clinical psychologist who introduced me to a concept known as ruminative thinking. But today she'll be presenting to us on the topic, is something going to give? Juggling the roles of a scientist practitioner, a lecturer. Over to you, Dr. Bateman.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer. Just give me a minute to share my screen. Okay, so I will be presenting on highlighting the fact that we have several roles that we tend to juggle from time to time. In the academy, we have at minimum 2 roles at minimum. So Dr. Shevers mentioned lecturing, mentioned research, among others. So we have to perform the task as lecturer as well as researcher and some administrative roles in order to make it through promotion. But oftentimes we've found that, you know, there's one role that tend to compromise the other role. And there are challenges just to be able to balance them enough so that we can make it to going across the bar, making it to senior lecturer, etc. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about more of a strategy, the strategy that I've used that has been helpful. And of course, it's not an easy strategy. It does take a lot of work, which takes me to the late Kobe Bryant. I admire this athlete and the strategies that he has used to become quite successful. I'm not going to talk about his successes, but I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to talk more about the strategies that he has used. So Kobe introduce the idea of the Mamba mentality. And what this means is working on ensuring that you become a better version of yourself on a daily basis, like reflecting, challenging yourself, working on yourself, improving on yourself. And I have observed in the past and even presently, because there are times when I'll go back to his tapes where he would observe his games. He would observe the games of others and he would look at their successes and he would become curious and ask them questions about, you know, the strategies that they use. And he tried to incorporate that to become successful. So what I've done in my academic career is to take on a bit of the Mamba mentality, to take on observing what it is that others who are successful in the field, what they've been doing, what works for them, and to incorporate it in my own strategy. Which takes me to professionalism. Now, I like this quote from Aristotle. Quality is not an act, it is a habit. So what I tend to do when I'm doing research and when I'm investing as a practitioner, as a lecturer, I'm constantly reviewing what it is that I'm doing and making sure that I'm improving on the quality of my work. So the work that I've done in 2011 should not look the same as the published work in 2015 or the published work in 2020. There should be some improvement because I have my own standards for myself where I'm constantly growing as a scholar and constantly learning based on the information that is out there and based on what it is that I am producing. The other thing also is that if you're putting in a lot of work, it's going to be exhausting. And Einstein, much humility here, mentioned that I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. And I like that part, the passionately curious, because when I'm exhausted or overwhelmed or I have no motivation or there is self-doubt, I engage with the passionate curiosity, being passionately curious. And what that does is that it gives me a strategy so that now I'm focusing on the strategy, I'm being energized by the strategy and my passion, and I'm using that to navigate through the research work. The next thing is to develop a strategy. So if you could take a step back and look at yourself and look at where you'd like to be in the academy, of course, you have to plan for it. There needs to be a development strategy. So what is your next career step? These are questions that I've asked myself. When will you take it? What will you accomplish by then? And what do you need to get there? So I've done trial and error, and I've learned quite a bit from my failures. I've invested in projects that weren't helpful to my career goals, projects that were time consuming, they weren't contributing to the body of information that we have out there. And it just wasn't allowing me to feel as if I was being productive in my field. So I learned that, you know, in creating this strategy, I have to find ways of being productive. When I say yes to a project, it has to align with my academic goals. It has to align with the profession that I'm in and the areas of research interests. This idea, individual career planning, this was introduced to me when I received mentorship from NYU. And you go through a lengthy questionnaire online, and you have to do your own self-analysis, but incorporate some of the goals. So your short-term goals and your long-term goals. Short-term goals being 1 to 3 years, long-term goals being 5 to 10 years. And every now and then I'll get notification from my individual career plan that says to me, all right, Carol, you're supposed to accomplish, and it will give me the list, and I will have to, it's a reminder that, okay, am I on target? Do I need to adjust a bit? Do I need to put in more, or am I okay? Now, if you're putting in a lot of work, there will be times when you won't have the motivation. So what I've found has helped, and this comes from a theoretical concept that we use in psychology called acceptance commitment therapy, something different right now. So it ties with your values. So what type of researcher would you like to be? What type of quality work would you like to put out there? And for me, what I tend to do is see myself in the future, looking back at what it is that persons have read in terms of my own work. And so when I engage in a project, I'm like an artist, and I'm creating based on the tools that I have, the best artwork that I can create. And what is guiding me in that moment for every time when I'm investing in the research project are my values, because I'm quite clear as to where I stand as a practitioner, as a researcher, as a lecturer. So the next thing also is that I spoke about commitment early on. So it is important to know why you're engaging in whatever it is that you're engaging in. So why you're doing what you're doing. So a constant reminder, as well as your actions should match your values. So if you're clear on your values, you use your values as a compass, and you ensure that each time, so if I'm working on being the type of lecturer I'd like to be, for instance, I have to fully be present with my students, provide engaging material, modify it as I go along, and make changes. And this is in keeping with my values as a lecturer, and the same would apply as a researcher. But it's not something that I can do on my own as a researcher. I have a community. I have a community of like-minded persons who tend to be driven to produce. They're in my field. We work together, we challenge each other, we pool together our strengths, and we challenge each other to grow in terms of our weaknesses. So most of the papers that you see where publication is concerned, they are from my little community, and that has been quite helpful. And so I'll end by saying, so we know, each of us know where we'd like to be in terms of our academic goal. And usually, you know, it may seem out of reach. It may seem way far ahead, especially if we're having challenges. But what I would encourage is to take one step at a time, and not just one step, but an effective step, because the step needs to make sense for your academic goals. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. James Bateman. Very, very, very practical steps that we can take to improve that balance in our lives between our output and our sanity in some cases. So, colleagues, we're at that stage where we're going to be able to ask questions of our panelists. There was a question very early in the game that was typed in the chat, which was for Dr. McLeod from Omar Woodham. He asked, we can take that, it says, what are some of the tips to expand your co-author base? This one is for you, Dr. McLeod. Just to say to everyone that we're going to be doing 10 minutes of Q&A. So if you have your questions, start raising your hand, start putting them in the chat so that we can address them as efficiently as possible. So Dr. McLeod, first with you, the question, what are some of the tips to expand the co-author base?
Okay, thanks much, Dr. Spencer. So, you know, one of the things that you could do is, you know, participate in conferences. You know, that helps, because when you attend a conference and you know they have these different panels, you're likely to, you know, you have an opportunity to interact with people who are doing, you know, research that are similar to yours, and so you you can approach them there. That helps. And of course, you can just send an email to someone. You know, I've received email before from people, you know, telling me that they're interested in, you know, this area and so on. So you just, you know, you can just send an email to people, to those that you're interested in working with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, conferences are, in addition to places where you get feedback, they are our hobnobbing events and a place to browse that.
Definitely.
All right, thank you. Shara, do we have any more questions in the chat?
Not seeing any in the chat.
Seeing raised
Checking
hands?
for the raised hands. No other questions?
No other questions? This is a brilliant opportunity to talk to our senior academics and senior administrators. Unless I think they may have been so clear and comprehensive, Shara, that maybe all the questions have been answered preemptively. All right, so in the absence of...
I have one question for Dr. Shevers.
Yes.
I have noted that, one second, I'm trying to find back the question. Okay, in terms of the research grant, someone has noted that it is not applicable to DBA students or MSBM programs. So they were wondering if there was any way that it could be extended to include that group of persons. Dr.
Good.
Shevels.
Excellent question, Shara, and that is something that I have to explore. And if it is not so, then certainly we'll have to have some deliberation to expand the program to include DBA and MSc students. But I'm certain if DBA and MSc students apply, we will. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm certain. Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Good.
Thank you, Doc. Do we have any other questions for any of our 4 panelists? Okay, I'm not hearing any prompt from Shara, so I think we are in a very good position. I quite like the presentations. There was a lot. Prof. Tennant said at the beginning that he had his notepad and his pen, and I spent quite a bit of time over here trying to be techie and jotting down some of the takeaways. I thought, first of all,
Prof has a question.
Someone has a question?
Prof, sorry to cut you. Yes, Prof has a question.
No. Well, I have to yield to Prof, you know. Prof, Tennant, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. I listened with interest to all the presentations, and I must admit, Nadine's presentation rocked me a little bit. I am clearly not a mother, I'm a father. And one of the things that I have found is that when your children call, there's nothing you can do but put down what you're doing and run to them. And I want to get a sense, maybe not only from Nadine, but just from the parents online. How do we manage that? I heard Carol saying about setting goals, setting realistic goals and working towards them. But I find that with me, and I can only say that I'm very thankful for my wife because she has allowed me not to have to lower my discount rate too much. But that is because she has lowered her discount rate. And my question is, how do you keep research goals when research is often the thing that is most easily dropped when other priorities arise?
That's a brilliant question, and I think Dr. McLeod may take a stab at it first. I'll allow all the panelists to address it, but Dr. McLeod, when you're addressing that, there's also a question in the chat asking, what do you mean by lowering the discount rate? Just a further explanation of that, and then responding to Prof. Tennant, and then I'll ask the other 3 panelists to respond as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Dean. Let me respond to the question in the chat first, because you use the same phrase, the lowering your discount rate, and the person asked about that. Kimberly asked about that. So what do I mean by that? I mean, let's say, let me just give you an example. Let's say you want to publish 5 papers in 2 years. You may have to push that back to 5 years, right? I mean, the timing of when you want to achieve the goals, you have to, that's what I mean by lowering your discount rate. The discount rate is what the rate, you know, the weight that you put on when you want to achieve certain things. So once you lower that, and I mean, it's going to take longer for you to accomplish certain things, and that's what I meant. I hope that was clear, Kimberly. Dean, I don't know. It's interesting when you say, okay, great. She got it. Thanks much. It's interesting because I actually thought of you and I thought of another colleague of mine who, and I know you said, you know, you're a father, you know, you're a male, but you're a father, and yes, but I know you also do your part, you know, and so you do take on some of these motherly responsibilities, and my co-authors who are males and fathers, they, you know, they are like you, 50-50, you know, and so on, and I think that is one of the reasons why we work well together, because that helps me to balance things, right? You know, having people who even though they're males, when we talk like parents. When we talk about kids, put the gender aside. You know the fact that, you know, it's the time constraints that we're facing and so on. So for me, just being around people people who understand what my constraints are. And you know, if I say things aren't going so well, you know, they'll say, okay, let's, you know, focus on that. But then at the next, you know, within a couple of days, they'll email and say, how are you doing? And I know that nudge is not just how are you doing, but remember, we got to get that work done, right? So just surrounding myself with the right people helps. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question because I was focused on the whole discount rate thing, but I hope I did. If I don't, you can repeat it and I'll just go on and on. You know, I have lots of stories.
I think you have, and I see the Dean bobbing his head, which means you have addressed. Just for the other colleagues, just very succinctly, if you could respond to what the Dean has asked. I have the same experience, Dean. My first child arrived 5 months after completing my PhD and returning to UWI, so I understand, and thanks to my wife as well. Any other colleague wants to come in on that point?
So the question is, how do you keep your research goals intact when research is often the easiest thing to drop,
right,
when other priorities arise? Whether it is children or administrative priorities or marking or any other things which come up, caring for parents.
Yeah, right. So for me, it's really I truly believe that if I was like, you know, a sole author, I didn't have any co-authors at all, I probably would have just walked away a long time ago. Yes, I love research, but you know, I mean, the as we say in FSS, the struggle is real, right? So, I mean, there are times when I've had moments when I say, you know, I have to walk away from this because I just can't manage. You know, I'm overly ambitious when it comes on to doing certain things. I want to do, you know, these big abstract things, and they do take time. And so, you know, but for me, the co-authorship really helps. And at the same time too, I truly believe that being a researcher helps me to be a better teacher, you know, and so I just don't want to drop that. You know, I do want to be a better educator. I want to be able to impart knowledge to my students and so on. And so, you know, that is also part of the thrust to keep going. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Nadine. Carol, Suzette, Delroy, quick comments?
I agree with Nadine. I think for me, it's the fact that I'm treating patients, I'm observing what's happening with my patients. It's informing, like my research is informing their treatment. It's the same for the students. So it ties in. So whatever it is that I'm doing in my investment in the research, it's more of, it's almost like I'm creating a lifestyle. So I can't neglect exercise, for instance, because I need that in order to function. So I can't neglect being a researcher because it's a part of, it's what I need to feed my students the information, because then I would be a hypocrite. And it's what I need to help my patients to get better. So that's how I see it.
Thanks.
And Kobe helps.
If I may add here, a strategy that I employ is to block specific times. Like for instance, allocate Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon to research. And at all times, it has to be something really, really critical, family oriented, health issues or something like that for me to depart from that. And yeah. I'm a morning person. So for me, it will be more like all Wednesday morning that I'm going to dedicate to research. Yeah. And that's it for me. Everything. So there's no meeting. I don't schedule any meeting. Even if someone wants to schedule a meeting on a Wednesday morning, it's a no for me. The only other thing for me is family or some crisis or some emergency. Yeah. So blocking a time is a strategy.
You actually answered Dr. Vassiani's question. She did ask a question. Do people have writing schedules, set time and that kind of thing?
Yeah, yes. Good.
All right, thank you. Suzette?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Spencer. Just to add, to concur with all the comments that my colleagues have made earlier, it's really a balancing act. There cannot be, I don't think it can be a choice when it comes on to family versus research. There's no choice there. Family has to supersede the research by far. However, I agree with the comments made about seeking support. The support might come in different formats. It might be working with a co-author that can sort of energize you, that can help you to meet your research goals. It's also about setting manageable goals based on your circumstances. We all have different circumstances. Mine is certainly different. I don't have children, but I have other things that I have to do as well. So you have to know your circumstances and make the goals manageable in terms of the deliverables. It might be when you don't have all of these responsibilities, you might say that you want to accomplish the writing of one paper, but you might have to lower that expectation. It might be you just have to write the literature one semester, and later on you have to do something else another semester. So in other words, you have to break the task into the publication task into manageable components and try. So it's not about writing a full paper at once, but you're consistently doing, you keep doing and keep doing, and at the end it will come together. It's never about dropping the research. It might be about, as Dr. McLeod mentioned, about sort of in a way lowering the expectations, making them into manageable components.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. And I see a comment here from Christine Clark as well, which adds to what has been said, trying to be as detailed as you can in designing the research so that it is easier to pick up after the shocks, the research plan, the research notes, to do next, and the timelines. So I quite like that. So, Prof, is your hand up?
Your hand, Andrew. Sorry, since nobody asking questions, I will ask some. I like what Christine just said in terms of the details. I find that is one of the factors in that you start your research, you get a momentum going, something happens, like now exams have to be marked, you have to put it down. And when you put it down, it's the hardest thing to start it back again. So I like what Christine said in terms of the notes. Does anybody else have any other strategies that you use to help you to get back that momentum, so it doesn't feel like you're starting over from scratch every single time you have to break? But that's one. What do you think I would answer to that one? I also like the question that Shara has posted. The expectation now for us is that summer coming up, marking soon finish, research time. We need to switch to research. But many of us are tired, dead tired. I can speak for myself. I am tired. How do I, and Karen, I think this was directed at you. How do I this idea of COVID fatigue, or just fatigue in general? How do you move from that state of fatigue to switch now to the other aspect of your work and keep on some kind of momentum going?
Well, Prof, you first have to start by acknowledging the fatigue. So if you need rest, start with getting the rest. The second thing is oftentimes we tend to see things as obstacles rather than opportunities that we have. So after getting the rest, is there another perspective we can take? Because COVID, or challenges in general, they always bring us opportunities to grow and to stretch ourselves, to become more creative in our approach. I mean, certainly with the pandemic, it has resulted in me organizing myself so that I become more efficient. And you have to do a check with yourself to see what works for you. So if you need to exercise in order to be exhausted so that you can sleep, so that you can wake up in the morning and then do the work. If you need to set your calendar at a particular point in time when you're more energized, knowing what works for you. So if you work better in the morning, if you just need to give yourself half an hour to just write, but start by acknowledging how you're feeling and lean into that. So whether it means sleep, vent, whatever it is that you need to do. And the next thing is to work on the perspective. There's another way that we can look at it. So if we're struggling, if we see it as an obstacle, step back and see how we can look at it in a more productive or helpful way, and then create a plan or strategy in order to reach the goals that you're trying to reach.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carol. Wonderful, and these coping mechanisms are going to be particularly necessary throughout 2021, and I suspect 2022 and maybe a little beyond. So very, very useful. Some of the takeaways for me, and I just want to highlight a few of them for you. This notion of lowering your discount rate if necessary, yes? Diversifying that co-author base so that there are multiple opportunities for you to be able to share that burden of research with varied individuals. But importantly, limiting the diversification of your research portfolio so that your stream of research is very aligned and very fluid. Get comfortable with moving the goalpost is something that came out from Dr. McLeod very forcefully. And I quite liked the statement by Dr. Houghton that everyone's journey is varied. Carve your own path. That came out a little bit in what Dr. James Bateman said as well. Understand yourself and create systems that will work for you. Keep writing. Do not get complacent with the victories and don't be dismayed by the losses. Learn about the resources available to you and use them. Start tomorrow. Balancing the roles is going to be very important because one takes away from the other. So you have to be very deliberate. Add some structure to your own research agenda. Research is the only thing that can be deferred that came out from the dean. I mean, that's the thing that you can push a little down the road because the marking has a very hard deadline. The admin duties have hard deadlines. Create some structure around your research agenda and stick to it. Tomorrow, be very strategic in being a better version of yourself and do that daily. As Aristotle stated, quality is not an act, it is a habit. And what I got at the end as well was if Einstein's passionate curiosity could get him there, so can yours. So do this one effective step at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being so engaging. Thank you all. And I know we'll all take these and utilize them tomorrow. Thank you from the Faculty of Social Sciences.